Welcome back to this edition of Grizzlies Daily. It is a very, very late one, but we got to get this out to y'all. I tried to get the last one out, but I really couldn't get it out to y'all. A lot was going on, especially in the city, well, really the state for that matter. So it was very, very difficult getting this out to y'all. So that's why you're getting it a day late. But regardless, we getting it out to y'all, and we getting this news in the Grizzlies Daily. Sorry for that weird intro. We just had to get that out there. Now, in news, and we're gonna start off on a little light note. If you didn't know, the John 3 shoe came out. I think the day before the release, Nike actually released a commercial. Very, very, very good. Very, very. I love when Nike is marketing their guys, and Ja being one of them. So love to see that. The shoe, if you don't remember, it's the one where um, Ja's logo is on it, but the Nike check mark is tilted. It's like rotated, so it looks like a J. It's actually a pretty cool concept, and it released, and that shoe basically sold out. It basically sold out. It was one of the hardest things to get from what people were saying. I missed out on it just because I don't really need any more John Moran shoes right now. But a lot of people love the shoe. The process to get it was very, very hectic. From what people said, yeah, I think it was a very good amount of shoes that came out though. It wasn't like a limited amount, limited drop. Like Nike went all out to make sure people got people got it, and many people got it as soon as possible. Like they made sure the quantity was good and enough for people. Now, obviously, there's no word on when another drop will happen. If there is, I probably skipped over it. But as for now, I don't know when another drop on the shoe will happen. But it's good to see that Ja has this global pull, especially with his tour in China, the Philippines, all this good stuff. You can tell Ja is having fun, which is something we haven't seen in a long time from Ja because he's been so focused. And then when he is focused, something happens, injury or just off court stuff, which hasn't really happened in a long time. But you get what I'm saying. It's very good to see Ja in a happy state of mind, and then Nike still using him as a marketable piece, which is always good for not only the Grizzlies and the city. So, yeah, really love to see that, and I really, really, really suggest getting the shoe. It is a very good looking shoe, so stay tuned for that next drop, and y'all can be on the lookout for it. Now let's switch back to the actual team itself. It's not really much going on, but obviously with the outlook of the season and team and analysts looking at teams and how they go into next year, a lot of talk is on the Grizzlies acquisitions, one being Ty Jerome and how he could really impact the team. And just after watching some film on Ty Jerome, I mean, I watched him in the entire season, but just watching some more film on Ty Jerome, I got some notes right here that I wrote down about him. One thing about Ty Jerome that I think will really help the team is while yes they have Scottie Pippen Jr. with the playmaking, um, Ty Jerome will be good for scoring. Ty Jerome, he's not necessarily known as a scorer, like specifically, but he does bring a good level of scoring that can come off the bench. Um, Obviously, playmaking one, great ball handling from him. Like him in the pick and roll aspect, he did pretty good on like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So hopefully, you can translate that with guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, maybe even a Brandon Clark. Who knows? But I think with his deal and what you get out of him, I think the Grizzlies can expect a very good impact from Ty Jerome. One thing about him that we really just have to see is his consistency from three. That was a concern when I talked to Cavs fans was his consistency for three because in the playoffs that did kind of go away. But I mean, it happens. It happens to some of the best players. Hey, your first touch of the playoffs, you don't really play that good. But I do think that Ty Jerome will be considered a huge piece for the Grizzlies. Now, in hindsight, we can only say so much because we don't know what the system is going to look like for the Grizzlies going into next year with the new coach and essentially new veterans and such. So one will have to see how they use Ty Jerome, but I do think he is a good replacement for what you did give up in the offseason. Obviously, you trade Desmond Bain, you get rid of Luke Kennard, but you do bring in guys like you bring back guys like Santi Aldama and Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think in hindsight, we have to look at it as replacing Desmond Bain may come as a difficulty for the Grizzlies early on, but that's just from what we know right now. We don't know how exactly they're going to replace him, but I do like the idea of bringing in Ty Jerome to replace a guy like Luke Kennard, because Luke Kennard got to a point where we really started to question his role on the team just because he wasn't doing what was needed or asked of him to do, and that was something that I grew frustrated, especially come playoff time. So definitely am looking forward to seeing what Ty Jerome can do, and hopefully it shows in the win column and the Grizzlies can exceed expectation, which, as we discussed on here before, is a 500 level team. So maybe the Grizzlies can exceed those expectations, and Ty Jerome can prove to be one of the bigger signings in this free agency period. So really looking forward to seeing that. And we have a slight update from Last Word on Sports.com, basically going into detail on just giving a little update on the Zach Edey injury timeline. I have it pulled up right here, actually. So if you don't remember, Zach Edey underwent surgery for a sprained left ankle that a left ankle that he sprained again, and he did it during the all-season workout. The team set the reevaluation for, I believe, October. Yeah, it's right here, October. And if you don't know, he suffered the injury in June, so 4 months. Now, the thing is, from what reports are saying, the outlook is positive right now, and the team expects a full long-term recovery. But it is possible that he could miss additional time beyond the season start, depending on the rehabilitation process. So, with the reports that I've been seeing, I think there's a strong possibility that I think the Grizzlies actually get Zach Edey earlier than expected. I think in every evaluation period, especially in October, I think at most we may hear week to week or day to day with Zach Edey, and when it gets to that evaluation point. Obviously, Grizzlies PR Twitter account is going to give us an update on that. But I do think with the progress that's going on, we may actually see Zach Edey not miss that much time as the season does start in October, middle of October. So until then, you got guys like Jared Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark and Jock Landale, who I actually saw recently in the lab with his Grizzlies gear practicing. So that was a very good sign. Looked like he was practicing free throws. So always good on that part. Obviously, replacing Edey is going to be a little difficult, a little challenging. But I think the Grizzlies can survive, especially considering he may not actually be out for as long as we think. And that is the best case scenario right there. Obviously, worst case scenario, he still recovers and he misses about 10, 15 games. So, like I said, Zach Edey's still on pace to probably miss the start of the regular season, but I do like the odds that he won't miss as much time as we truly think. So that's just a little update on that. I know a lot of people really been wanting to see like what's the ideal likelihood that Zach Edey comes back healthy and early, and there you go right there. Now, switching gears before we wrap this up, the ESPN, they dropped another list. Yeah, they dropped another list, and this one is basically just saying what each team is all in on, and ESPN simply said, well, no, let me scratch that. It's all in tiers, and it's basically saying what all 30 teams are chasing in this upcoming season. So, just explain the tier list. You have all in on winning a championship before the window closes, an extended championship window, building around young cores, two timelines, and the last one being a gap year. Well, no, the two timelines, a gap year, draft positioning, and all in on nothing. And then one being all in on 2024, which just one team is the Phoenix Suns. So that was kind of funny to me. And the Grizzlies, honestly, I'm not even surprised to hear they're all in on building around young cores. So yeah, I'm not mad at that, but I will read this line to y'all right here. It basically every team that's in this list right now: Atlanta, Detroit, Grizzlies, Trailblazers, and the Spurs. I'm just gonna leave the line right here. Just starting with Detroit, because it talks about the Atlanta Hawks and how the New Orleans Pelicans basically got good boosts. No. It basically describes the Hawks getting a good boost. It doesn't really talk about the Pelicans that much. But I'll start from the Detroit line. It basically says Detroit saw Cade Cunningham take a massive step forward last season as the franchise won a playoff game for the first time since 2008. Now the goal is to build on that success for Cunningham and a young core around him featuring Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, and Jalen Green. I mean, not Jalen Green, Jalen Duren. The Grizzlies, on the other hand, suffered a short-term setback by unloading Bane to Orlando for a collection of picks, but one of them, probably Phoenix's 2026 first-rounder, has a lot of upside. The hope is that pick, plus this year's lottery selection, Cedric Howard, and franchise cornerstones Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. can allow this team to have a long runway. Now, usually I have my gripe when it comes to ESPN and how they write their articles, specifically on the Grizzlies. But if I gotta be honest, it's spot on. It's really spot on. I mean, the Grizzlies still do have a fairly young core and one of the more experienced young cores when it comes to just, how many years they've been in the league. But I mean, it pretty is. It is spot on. Now, the Desmond Bane trade, I don't necessarily think that's a short-term setback. I don't think it's a setback at all. I mean, not necessarily saying it's an upgrade, but to say it's a setback, I don't know how I feel about that. Because for a setback, that means you really have to take a step, really have to take a step back and not really seem as much of a threat as you think. Now, that's not me saying that the Grizzlies are just like one of the more threatening teams in the league, but they are one of the teams that can be considered a dark horse now because the expectations have fallen since the last few years. Now, I do like I do agree with the fact that, the fact that they have Phoenix's 2026 first rounder, that does have a lot of upside. Obviously, it's going to have a lot of value. Be interesting to see how the 2026 draft class looks, because it's a possibility we could see the Grizzlies hold on to that pick and load up on more young talent, or they could use the value of that pick and simply move forward with trying to bring in that third piece, So very interested to see how this year goes, because I think really with it being a retooling year, I think regardless, the year ends on a winning note because you have the all season to look forward to. Now, the only thing that would make that better is if the Grizzlies make a deep playoff run and Ja Morant is able to stay healthy, playing at least 60 games. So that's something to look forward to. And obviously, the improvements from Jaren Jackson Jr. and how other guys develop on the roster, especially coming into the roster, guys like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cedric Howard, and maybe even Jock Landale, who knows, and especially Ty Jerome. So got to look forward to doing that. And obviously, Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., they are their own entity. Main thing with them is just staying healthy and improving and keeping down the turnovers or the negative aspects of their game. So definitely looking forward to seeing how this year plays out, and definitely don't mind this outlook right here because the Grizzlies, like I said, do have one of the more experienced young cores in the league. So they need to build on it and build on it fast. I don't know how that comes, and I don't know what form that comes in, but they need to do it quickly because time is running out. You don't want to run out of time because this is the biggest championship window we've had and this is the only championship window I feel like we've had in the franchise's history. So definitely the Grizzlies need to capitalize on that and definitely not slack around because teams like OKC capitalize on their championship window and we see how it's paid off. And it's only going to keep going. So just got to take a few notes from other teams and really capitalize on this and don't take the opportunity for granted because it does not come easy as we look at teams like the Sacramento Kings and even the Chicago Bulls, for example. So definitely have to take advantage of those opportunities, and one can only hope that the Grizzlies front office really taps in and really reaches out to build around those two cornerstones of the franchise being Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. And as far as that goes, there's only so much that we can say and hope for, but that is a wrap for this edition of Grizzlies Daily. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you get notified when we upload. And that's the edition of Grizzlies Daily. My name is Melek, and I'll be signing off.